Allahu Akbar.
Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. والصلاة والسلام على خاتم الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. My dear brothers and sisters in Islam and in humanity, for those who are of other faith communities, I greet you with the greeting of all of the prophets, the greeting of peace. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, which means may the peace, blessing, and mercy of Allah be with you. And I'm thankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and also after him to the organizers and to you all for giving me the opportunity to share a few humble thoughts on this topic of negative propaganda. And I wish in the very outset to say that I'm honored to share this panel with Congressman Carson, as well as my dear brother, also Dr. Tariq Ramadan. I'll try to use the PowerPoint to make easier to follow, since I can speak a little bit faster. But basically, there are three areas to cover. The first is some simple introduction. Secondly, which is the major presentation, really, the nature and pitfalls of the negative propaganda about Islam. And thirdly, and towards the conclusion, how can we address those negative propaganda after making diagnosis? The diagnosis take most of the time, that facilitate the last section. To start with, people use different terms, and I know some people don't like the term Islamophobia, and by the way, you can add Sharia phobia, jihadophobia. I mean, there are lots of phobias going on, but in any case, one key element in all of these definitions is fear. Fear of Islam as a faith and fear of Muslims. Oftentimes, the campaigns are laced with hatred and demonization, especially of Muslims, of course. While various circles are involved in this campaign, some of the institutionalized circles are said to be very well staffed, people full-time searching for something to confuse people with, studying Islam their own way. Some are very well funded, and some of you might have seen the CARE report that in the last few years, something like $113 million were spent just to blemish and attack Islam. Very special, highly specialized type of work. The problem is that these circles have almost free access to the mass media, so they can easily spread all those ideas. Now they're using, of course, modern technology through the internet and other sources. Muslims have not come close to matching that. Some of you might have seen an article in the recent issue of Islamic Horizon by Imran Siddiqui, when he actually says that while it has been widely held that this hate propaganda against Islam was coming from the far right, extremist far right, but he said there is evidence now, and he gave examples like Bill Moyer and others. People even on the left seem to have joined in. And that reminds me with one statement I made one time when I was speaking about civic engagement, that Muslim became like a football in the arena of political competition for votes, whether you're on the right or left. If it serves your cause by attacking Islam and Muslims, so be it. So much for introductions. Let me get to the substance, which I consider more important, even my humble observation, and it's not a complete or inclusive. I just have like 12 points. We'll go systematically through them. The problem with the nature of this propaganda and the methodology they use. There are cases where the information spread are totally fabricated. It's not misunderstood. Total fabrication. I don't have time to go into examples. They're endless. There are cases where the information is there that's being conveyed, but in a skewed or distorted manner that probably change it all. or change all the meaning of it. There is also the case of promotion of suspicion, hearsay, and lifting them to the level of facts. So something that has not been proven and is presented to the reader or the audience as an undisputed fact. One of the things that I have been personally affected by that, as well as many other activists like Dr. Muzammil Siddiqui and almost every major Islamic organization in North America. In the dragnet after the tragic events of September 11, many people were just interested to indict anyone who's connected with Islamic world. For many people and many organizations, almost all of them, there was absolutely no evidence whatsoever. So they came up with this legal term that most people, ordinary people, do not understand. But when you hear it, it sounds horrible. Somebody who's an organization, unindicted co-conspirator. Unindicted co-conspirator in such and such terror, finance, or this or that. Most of the people, when they look at that, they just say, they wouldn't look very carefully at the word unindicted, which means there is not any evidence that stands in a court of law that make these people, guilty of what is being said about them. So to keep spreading this over and over and over again, it blemishes the reputation of many people because people don't understand. So actually, I call it like indicting in public those who are unindicted in courts of law. And sometimes even there is distortion. They say such and such person was indicted. Sometimes they move on. But even if they leave it like that, it's very confusing for many. A fifth issue, that some people are very interested to have sites dedicated to fishing every single day on any wrongdoing that has been done by Muslims or is being done by Muslims. Well, that doesn't require rocket science or smartness. You're talking about, and that's perhaps the closest estimate, 2 billion human beings. That's 1/4 of humanity in all continents, in all parts of the world, in all cultures. And do you expect that you got 2 billion angels? Christians are about the same number, at least Catholics, a little less than that. Do you expect that all Catholics, all Christians are nothing but angels? It's very easy. Look at any religion in the world, major world religion in the world. You're bound to find some people who are violent, some people who are in the fringe, some people who are fanatic. Boko Haram is haram. Actually, it is haram what they're doing. So you can find numerous examples. But why among all world religion, among all the wrong, the killing, the torturing, the injustices that are done to human beings all over the world by people who claim to be followers of all kinds of religion, only Islam stand up that this is what Islam is all about. In fact, some of the aspects like the Boko Haram, which is total deviation from the teaching of Islam, and you say, that's Islam in reality, Islam in action. Sometimes also many people would make all kinds of statements about the Quran without even bothering to read it. If that happens from an ignorant person, who's not discerning, one can understand it. But there are people, and the article again by Imran Siddiqui, I refer to that, there are people who are regarded by a lot of people as some of the brightest scientific minds. And when we talk about scientific minds, we talk also using the scientific approach, being fair, studying things, making assumptions and so on, make an argument for and against until you prove it. But when it comes to Islam, they spew things that is far from any scientific or fair approach. He referred to, I don't have to mention the name, one of the most important icons of atheism, and a bright scientist, that he says the Quran is a hateful or hate-filled book. And one time he acknowledged when he asked, he said he didn't read the Quran. So the question now is in a bind. But then he adds, to insist on falsehood again, he said, I don't have to read Mein Kampf to know that this is a hate-filled book, Kifahi, or My Struggle. Adolf Hitler, just like the Quran. This is the kind of mentality that, on one hand, they're so bright, and on the other hand, I don't know what to call them. It is the poisoning of mind and attitude. I don't care whether he's an atheist or not, that's his choice. But to make a statement as a scientist and a scholar on something that you haven't even read, let alone understand properly, that's rather interesting. Okay. Sometimes also people, and that's the most common problem, not only with people outside of the Muslim community, but among many Muslims. It's a very dangerous one, to quote from the Quran as if every verse is something that came from nowhere, connected with nothing else. We take it as it is selectively, without any regard to the historical context in which some of these ayat in the Quran were revealed, like in the state of war and in defense of themselves. So people just pluck those verses. You say, we don't have, just like say, I don't have to read the Quran to know it's bad. No, I don't have to think about any occasion. It suits my purpose because it's a kill. So that's, kill whom? Everybody? Or the one who's trying to kill you? This is the kind of serious flow. There is also what I call the textual context, not only historical. As the rule that is well known in understanding the Quran, أنه يفسر بعضه بعض. The Quran explains itself. It's not isolated ayat here or there. It is an integrated whole. And it's not divided by subjects to say, all right, I study women in only chapter 4. No, it is with it that you have to have full and complete understanding of the Quran in order to cull and bring together all the ayat that relate to a particular topic and study it together. But some people say, once I found the verse that suits me, I quote it over and over again as if it is a separate Quran by itself. Sometimes also people use what I call, just as a modern term, the cut and paste approach. You can do it without being detected now with computer, You cut and paste. So some people do that in writing their term papers, by the way, which is not good. Anyway, cut and paste. Cut the pieces that you want, put it together the way you want. And I've always held that challenge, that I can prove to you anything from any book if I use the cut and paste approach. Name it. Just cut and paste. Bring pieces from here and there relating to different topics to prove and to produce what you want to convey to people. Now, the last couple. To equate some of the opinion that some ulama gave, and I'm not talking opinion here on basics. Basic, there is no opinion, really. There are fixed things, stable aspects in our Sharia, and there are also various opinions and detailed issue of interpretation. And they deal with that and stick and adhere to that quotation because it suits their purpose as if it has equal footing or standing with the text of the Quran. I faced a couple of these people. Somebody bring me a book of fiqh, one of the old ones, and keep quoting this. What do you think of this? I tell him, look, there are thousands of fiqh books. I don't agree with that. Other scholars don't agree with that. So, but it is a scholar. His name is such and such. I said, so what? As if to him, if an opinion suits their purpose, it doesn't matter. It has to be just like the Quran. You have no right to differ with it, and maybe other scholars were wrong even to differ with. There's also the lack or insufficient familiarity with the rules of interpretation of the Quran, not only just the contextual aspects of it, historically or textually, but also there are a number of other guidelines in interpreting the Quran. And not anyone interpret the Quran. There are qualifications also to do this. In some cases, people even if they studied or read about this, but because of their personal agenda, they disregard it. Even if they know it, they disregard it. So much for scholarship. Moving on to the last one, and I hope we're doing good with the time, is the failure to realize that some scholars' opinion might have been given and suited to their own particular time and environment. In other words, when the scholar make ijtihad in matters which doesn't have a conclusive text or wide ijma', something relatively new, and they give an opinion on it, none of them, to my knowledge, ever said that, and my opinion is the truth, the ultimate truth, and nothing but the truth. It is my way and everybody else to the highway. None of them. Imam Shafi'i was known to have said, my opinion is right but could be wrong. The other opinion is wrong but could be proven right. None of them had that kind of arrogance that we find among people who are not humbled by the true scholarship and knowledge. And some people would take that blindly. Some people even would deal with those texts or opinion as if they are frozen in time. And if the same scholars were living today without violating the basics, thawabit, they probably would have given different opinions. So we don't want the notion of opening the door for anyone, whether qualified or not, just to make all kind of innovation and give opinions, say everybody else before me were wrong and it was their time and we have our time. To open the door wide like that would be to water down, even start to encroach on the thawabit, the main stable aspects of our deen. But on the other hand, we don't also go to the other extreme of freezing one fatwa, one opinion, or one madhab without examining, of course, by those who are qualified, the contingencies of our time. In other words, Islam allows us to respond to modernity, but not embrace the ideology of modernism, that everything new must be better than anything that is old. Modernity, responding. And the motto of the scholar has always been that the fatwa in a given issue change with the change of time, place, customs, and circumstances. So this is the wasatiyya of Islam, not going to one extreme or the other because we're so enthusiastic or critical of one aspect or the other. In the last remaining 2 minutes, 56 seconds, I'll just come to addressing the negative propaganda. One, I'm trying to be very concise on this. One, above all, commitment to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which means to be committed, to have that sense of responsibility of being involved in correcting all these misconceptions about Islam in the best possible way. To feel responsible personally for that. You don't have to be a scholar to do that. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam say, "Ballighu anni walau aya," convey from me even one verse. Don't just jump to big scholars and big shots. No, everyone has responsibility. Everybody serve to the extent that Allah gave them of knowledge and understanding. Secondly, in order to respond to the challenges we are facing today, we have to realize that what we studied about Islam in our countries, for example, may not be as enough or suitable to respond to new questions that arise here, new challenges that are directed to Muslims. So we need to educate ourselves in some greater depth, and also to be aware of all these shubuhat, all these questions and objections that are raised, so that we can respond to them not just by emotional outburst, but with very careful, studied, and logical answer to these questions. But even if we have the knowledge, sometimes we lack the ability to convey them in the way that, as Dr. Tariq quoted the ayah in the Quran, invite all to the way of Allah in wisdom and with the best exhortation. May I add also about the way you talk to people. I'm glad that he raised the question, speaking softly to the Pharaoh. There is a general rule even in the Quran, وَقُولُوا لِلنَّاسِ حُسْنًا, in the covenant that Allah took from the Israelites, that speak nicely and softly to people. It didn't say to believers. People, meaning everyone, whether atheist, whatever, They're all should be treated, because the Quran speaks about the generality of human dignity. We need also to find the etiquette from the text of the Quran and ahadith of the Prophet ﷺ about inviting people. One of the most important things is that oftentimes somebody instigates Muslims by making very insulting remarks. And you know, the way they behave emotionally, not in a very deliberate way, make things worse, result even in people being killed, whether it's Salman Rushdie or Taslima Nasreen or all those people who once in a while try to stir. This is not the way the Prophet ﷺ responds to attacks and insult against him personally. We find many examples of this, but again, because of the lack of time, I'll just refer to the attack on him being stoned in At-Ta'if, and this the time where probably Isra and Mi'raj is around that time, in 27th of Rajab, but there's dispute about it anyway. But in any case, what we learn from this, that instead of calling on the destruction of those people, he said, "Oh Allah, guide my people, for they know not what they're doing." So just as Dr. Tariq reminded us, if you have Iman, don't be selfish. Don't just invoke the curse of Allah on those who don't have it. No, you should love him as a human being, and a manifestation of that love is to try to help the person to be guided in spite of their arrogance. When we went into Mecca, say, you go, you are all free. I say to you today what Joseph said unto his brother, "La tathriba alaykum al-yawm," from Surah Yusuf. There is no blame on you this day. The Quran teaches us repelling evil with goodness. Idfa' billati hiya ahsanu as-sayyi'ah. There are more than one ayah to that effect. To conclude, we are facing, yes, unfair propaganda, but that's nothing new. It is age-old, and it is likely to continue in the future. So our duty then is to restore the truth, rather than just shout and go and burn books in the streets, or do all these acts that is strange to one who's read the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ. We need also to have a deeper commitment, deeper understanding, and more importantly, good example. If we Muslims are embodying the ideals and values of Islam, I think even you might not need to speak too much, because people will read all these wrong things and see the total opposite in your behavior. This is a major challenge that we are facing, and I pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we stand up to that challenge. Assalamu alaikum.